In the year 1985, Dr. Anton Mid received an urgent call from a construction site on the island of Gozo, one of the Maltese islands, located about 96 kilometers off the coast of Italy. The voice on the other end was filled with panic. A group of workers digging the foundation for a new clinic had just unearthed something massive. Buried beneath the ground was a skeleton over 3 meters long. At first, Dr. Mid dismissed it outright. After all, no human or any known creature could have reached that size. It had to be a mistake. But then something stirred in his memory. A strange, almost forgotten legend whispers of beings that once lived beneath the earth. And just like that, the story took a turn. Not long after a wave of bizarre discoveries began to surface, mysterious temples, impossibly old stone structures, and traces of a forgotten past that no one could quite explain. It was as if something buried for thousands of years had finally decided it was time to return. Cue eerie music, rising tension. Believe it or not, the legend of giants in Malta goes back thousands of years. One winter night long ago, an old farmer lay resting inside his modest hut. Suddenly, he was awakened by a strange, low-pitched sound, something deeper than the wind, almost like a rumble from another world. Curious, the farmer stepped outside and looked toward the wheat fields nearby. There was no moon that night. The sky should have been pitch black, but instead a mysterious glowing light was spreading across the landscape, and it was getting brighter by the second. The sound grew louder, almost unbearable now. The farmer had seen shooting stars before, little streaks of light racing across the heavens. But this was different. There was only one, and it was huge. A glowing object ablaze with fire streaked across the night sky, and it was coming straight toward him. He tried to run back to warn his family, but it was too late. The object screamed overhead, ripping through the sky, leaving behind a burning trail before crashing into a nearby valley. There was a blinding flash of light, like lightning had cracked open the world, and then darkness. His wife ran out terrified, but just as he turned to comfort her, her eyes locked onto something behind him, something enormous. They both froze. Standing at the edge of the forest was a towering silhouette taller than the trees, broader than any man could ever be. A giant. Her name was Sansuna. She claimed to be a descendant of the ancient Nephilim, a mysterious race of giants mentioned in ancient religious texts. When she first arrived on the island of Gozo, the locals were terrified. Her body was massive, her strength unnatural. She looked like a mountain come to life. But instead of bringing destruction, Sansuna offered protection. Back then, the farmers of Gozo lived in constant fear of pirates and raiders. But once Sansuna appeared, that fear vanished. The people finally had a guardian, a real one, a being of myth walking among them. Scattered across the island today are enormous blocks of limestone, some weighing over 20 tons, standing as tall as towers. To the locals, these stones were far too massive to be moved, let alone stacked and placed with such precision. Thousands of years ago, there were no metal tools. The wheel hadn't even been invented. And yet, these ancient structures still stand. According to legend, Sansuna carried each of these stones by hand, setting them carefully into place one after another. And slowly, great temples began to rise. Across the Maltese islands, there are more than 30 of these megalithic structures. The most famous of them all is called Gantija, which literally means belonging to the giant. This isn't just folklore. Gantija is one of the oldest man-made religious structures on Earth, older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids of Egypt. The temple complex consists of 2 massive buildings that share a common wall. Their layouts are strangely symmetrical, shaped like gigantic clovers. The entrance leads through a central corridor straight to the back, passing through sacred chambers lined with stone altars. Archaeologists believe these altars were once used for ritual worship, perhaps sacrifices, though no one knows exactly what was practiced there. But over time, the name Sansuna faded into legend. No one really believed that a giant had carried those stones. Not until the first clue was uncovered. Malta, as it turns out, has been inhabited for thousands of years. Its location between Europe and North Africa made it a strategic crossroads for many ancient empires. The Phoenicians were the first to conquer the islands, followed by the Romans, Byzantines, Arabs, and eventually the Christian kingdoms. In 1530, control of Malta passed to the nobleman Giovanni Abella, a passionate historian obsessed with ancient mysteries. He spent his entire life tracking down lost ruins and buried sites hidden beneath layers of debris. During one excavation, his team discovered something unexpected wedged between the rocks. At first glance, it looked like just another chunk of stone, but when Abella examined it more closely, he was stunned. It was a femur, a human thigh bone, more than twice the length of a normal adult's. Whoever this bone belonged to had to be over 3 meters tall. Abella didn't waste a second. He launched a massive excavation campaign across the islands. After years of digging, he compiled his findings into a groundbreaking work published in 1647, a book that would shake the world of archaeology. It documented strange skulls, massive femurs, tibias, vertebrae, and enormous pelvis bones that no ordinary human could ever possess. He concluded that a race of ancient giants had once lived in Malta and possibly built the massive temples we still see today. Abella even turned his private home into Malta's first public museum, showcasing the bizarre remains for all to see. Experts in anatomy and natural history confirmed these bones did not belong to normal humans. Still, skeptics insisted they were animal remains exaggerated by time and imagination. But then, more ruins were uncovered, and more bones, and the mystery only deepened. Years passed, the excitement faded, the bones disappeared from public view, and just when it seemed like the story of Malta's giants had been buried for good, something unexpected happened. In 1902, on the outskirts of a small village in Malta, a group of workers was digging the foundations for a new house. It was supposed to be a routine job until their shovels hit something hollow. It was a stone slab. They cleared the dirt, lifted the slab, and discovered a narrow passageway leading into the earth. Word spread fast. Archaeologists rushed to the site. As they descended into the passage, what they found stunned even the most skeptical minds. A vast underground temple carved entirely from solid limestone. This wasn't just a small room. It was an immense labyrinth of twisting halls, chambers, and altars, all cut by hand, buried beneath the surface for thousands of years. The complex would come to be known as the Hal-Saflieni Hypogeum, and it changed everything we thought we knew about prehistoric Malta. The deeper they went, the stranger it got. Inside one of the chambers was a space now called the Oracle Room. Its walls are curved and smooth, the ceiling low and rounded. Here's the eerie part: if you stand in the center of the room and speak at just the right frequency, your voice echoes in a way that can be felt deep inside the bones. It vibrates the walls, the floor, the human body itself. Acoustic engineers tested it. What they discovered is still debated today. This room appears to have been intentionally designed to amplify certain vocal frequencies, particularly those between 95 and 120 Hz, the same range as the deep tones of male chanting. Why would a civilization with no electricity or modern tools build a chamber like that, underground? In another chamber, researchers uncovered something even more shocking: over 7,000 human skeletons piled together in ceremonial positions. But as archaeologists began examining the remains more closely, they noticed something bizarre. A small number of these skulls were not like the others. They were elongated, smooth, and stretched toward the back, almost as if they'd been shaped on purpose. The bone structure lacked the normal sutures, the joints that typically divide the human skull into plates. Some experts claimed these skulls belonged to a different branch of hominid entirely, something not quite human. The discovery set off a firestorm. Were these just examples of ancient cranial deformation? A cultural practice seen in other civilizations? Or had something truly anomalous been uncovered? The Maltese authorities quietly removed the elongated skulls from the public exhibit. Today, they're no longer available for viewing, their current location unknown. Just like that, the evidence vanished. Meanwhile, across the island of Gozo, the mystery of the giants was being quietly reignited. Dr. Anton Mid, the archaeologist we mentioned earlier, was following up on that strange call from the construction site. The massive skeleton they'd discovered had since been buried again, covered up due to legal delays. But Mid couldn't shake the feeling that something huge had been missed. He began collecting stories from the locals. One particularly chilling account came from a man named Joseph Muscat, a lifelong resident of Gozo. He claimed that when he was a child, he and some friends had snuck into a restricted dig site just outside the village. What they found inside still haunted him to this day. They crawled through a narrow opening in the earth, descending into what seemed like a cave, but it wasn't. The walls were cut too cleanly, the floors too flat. They were inside something built, and scattered around them were enormous bones too big to belong to any known animal. Joseph swore they saw skulls human in shape, but twice the size. As they explored deeper, they stumbled upon something else: tunnels, long ones, sloping downward. So far they couldn't see where they ended, and just as they were about to investigate further, they heard it. A voice, deep, echoing, not angry, not welcoming either, just watching. They ran. When Joseph told this story to Dr. Mid decades later, his voice still trembled. He wasn't alone. Other witnesses came forward. Some spoke of lights in the forest. Others described a strange hum that could be felt more than heard. But the most consistent accounts all mentioned the same thing: tunnels. Malta, it seems, is crisscrossed with them. Some of these tunnels connect ancient temples, separated by miles of open land. And yet the passageways are precise, intentional, and clearly engineered. In fact, an official excavation in the 1940s by National Geographic explored one such tunnel network beneath the hypogeum. A team of 30 schoolchildren was taken down to observe the ancient structure. Only 3 of them ever came back. The incident was quietly erased from the records. The parents were told it was an accident. No bodies were recovered. The entrance to that section of the hypogeum was sealed shut. To this day, it remains off-limits to the public. And the question hangs in the air: what or who were those tunnels made for? Legends say that the giants weren't just tall. They were guardians, beings of immense strength and wisdom, tasked with watching over humanity during a time when the world was still young and fragile. But over time, humans grew ambitious. Civilizations rose. The old ways were forgotten. Some say the giants went underground willingly to sleep, to wait to hide from the chaos of man. Others believe they were hunted and driven into the dark places of the earth. Whatever the truth is, one thing is clear: something old lies beneath Malta, something we were never meant to find. And if we keep digging, if we keep uncovering what was buried, we might not just find bones. We might wake them up. In the quiet corners of Malta, people still whisper about the ones who live below. Not in a superstitious fairy tale kind of way, more like a shared knowing. A silent agreement that something happened here long ago. Something the modern world has tried very hard to forget. But no matter how deep we bury the past, the earth remembers. And in 2021, that memory stirred again. A small group of amateur archaeologists, not university scholars, not government-backed teams, decided to revisit some of the more obscure sites around Gozo. Their goal was simple: to find physical evidence that the island's legends weren't just stories. They started with aerial scans and LiDAR mapping. After weeks of data collection, a strange anomaly appeared near a collapsed section of an old megalithic temple. The ground readings suggested an open void beneath the surface, nearly 60 feet down. There were no records of any natural cave in that location. So they dug. After several days of careful excavation, the team hit a flat stone slab. When they managed to lift it, they discovered a narrow shaft, perfectly square, with tool marks along the inner walls. It wasn't a cave. It was an entrance. With headlamps and rope, 2 team members descended. What they described later doesn't sound possible. They emerged into a wide corridor, not unlike the hypogeum, but older. The walls were smoother, the air colder. And on those walls were carvings unlike anything seen in Malta before. Not spirals, not animals. Eyes, dozens of them, perfectly symmetrical, watching. The 2 explorers moved deeper until they reached what looked like a central chamber. At the far end was a large stone door, sealed but not locked. One of them approached it, placing his hand on the surface. That's when the sound began. A low vibration, not from outside, from within the stone itself. They backed away, climbed out, and sealed the shaft again. To this day, that site remains untouched. The footage they recorded was mysteriously corrupted. The LiDAR scans lost in a sudden hard drive failure, and the team, once vocal about their discovery, has gone silent. Some say they were threatened. Others believe they're just afraid of what they found, or what they might have awakened. But the story doesn't end there. In 2022, a classified report leaked from a private European defense contractor working on underground infrastructure across the Mediterranean. In the report, an engineering team documented an encounter with what they called unidentifiable subterranean life forms during a borehole survey between Malta and Tunisia. They never used the word giants, but their description included bipedal figures over 9 feet tall, fast-moving, with glowing eyes and skin that reflected sonar imaging. The incident was quickly dismissed as a technical malfunction. The project was cancelled within the week. No further explanation was given. You might be wondering, if all this is real, why don't we hear about it? Why doesn't it make the news? Simple. The deeper the truth goes, the more dangerous it becomes to those in power. Think about it. If we confirm that ancient advanced civilizations, maybe non-human ones, once existed beneath our feet, everything changes. Religion, history, politics, control. It's easier to mock the believers, to label them conspiracy theorists, than to confront the possibility that giants really did walk this earth and that some of them might still be here, watching, waiting. So where does that leave us? Are the temples of Malta merely impressive ruins, or do they serve a deeper purpose? Were they built for the giants, or by them? And if the stories are true, if some of those beings still sleep below, how long before we dig too deep? Some archaeologists believe the tunnels under Malta extend far beyond the island, possibly connecting to similar underground networks in Turkey, Sardinia, and even the Middle East. A web of forgotten passageways spanning continents. We used to call them myths. Now we call them alignments. We've discovered that many of these ancient sites were not placed randomly. They follow patterns. They match constellations. They align with solstices. And some of them, when mapped out, form straight lines thousands of miles long. Ley lines, energy grids, or ancient highways. Maybe these structures weren't just ceremonial. Maybe they were built as gateways connecting places, people, or worlds. It's easy to dismiss all of this as coincidence. But here's the thing about legends. They don't survive for thousands of years by accident. Someone saw something, someone remembered, and maybe, just maybe, someone left us a warning. Some say it was just a myth, others believe it was a message. But for those who followed the clues, the final truth feels inevitable. Malta was never just an island. It was a beacon, a place carefully chosen, strategically aligned, precisely engineered, not just by or for humans, but for something older, something hidden. And as we trace these ancient footprints through time, a terrifying possibility begins to emerge. What if the people of Malta were not just building temples? What if they were sealing something in? Let's go back to one of the island's most enigmatic structures, the Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni, a 3-level underground temple carved straight into limestone deep beneath the surface. Unlike the above-ground megaliths, the Hypogeum was never exposed to the elements, and that's what preserved its secrets. But even today, those secrets remain deeply unsettling. In the lowest chamber of the Hypogeum lies what archaeologists call the Oracle Room, a perfectly shaped cavity in the wall that creates acoustic resonance. If someone with a deep voice speaks into it, their words echo throughout the entire temple system, amplified, distorted in a way that defies physics. Researchers have tested the frequency. It vibrates between 95 and 120 Hz, the range known to affect human brainwaves. Yes, the Hypogeum was literally built to influence consciousness, but that's not all. According to early excavation reports from the 1900s, long before strict site regulations, several elongated skulls were found in the temple. Unlike typical human skulls, these were stretched narrow with unusually large cranial volume. Photographs of the skulls do exist, but today they're missing. Officially, the Maltese government claims they were lost in transit, but insiders suggest they were quietly removed, possibly by institutions with a long history of concealing evidence that challenges accepted history. And if that's true, then maybe the Hypogeum wasn't a place of worship. Maybe it was a containment chamber, a vault, a prison, or worse, a communication hub for something not entirely of this earth. But here's where the rabbit hole goes even deeper. Recent satellite ground-penetrating radar has revealed unexplored voids underneath both Malta and Gozo, some over 100 meters deep. Despite multiple calls from the academic community, official excavations have been denied. Why? Because one of those voids lies directly underneath a modern government building, and what's buried beneath that structure remains classified. But leaked documents passed quietly between private researchers describe metallic anomalies consistent with non-terrestrial alloys buried beneath the bedrock. Artifacts, tech, possibly remains. And this changes everything, because if Malta was part of an ancient network, and if its temples were built on power nodes, then this isn't just about giants or lost civilizations. It's about contact. It's about the interface between worlds, between the surface and the underground, between human and other. And suddenly the legends make more sense. Sansuna, the glowing lights, the strange sounds, the recurring theme of beings who arrived from below, not from the sky. We've spent decades looking upward for alien life. But what if they've been here all along, sleeping beneath our cities, watching from deep chambers, waiting for the right frequency, the right alignment, the right moment? There's one last detail, one you may find hard to ignore. If you overlay ancient maps of the Maltese temple sites with star constellations from 10,000 BC, they align perfectly, but not just with any stars. They match Orion, the constellation most commonly associated with the gods of ancient Egypt, and the watchers mentioned in the Book of Enoch. Coincidence? Or were they leaving us a map, a warning, or perhaps an invitation? We are not alone. We never were. And what lies buried beneath Malta may not just rewrite human history, it may awaken it. Final thought. You were told these stories were myths. You were taught to laugh at them. But the soil doesn't lie. The stones remember, and the temples still hum with a resonance older than time. So next time you walk alone and feel the earth rumble beneath your feet, don't look up. Look down, because something ancient is stirring, and it's not done with us yet. Were the giants real? Was Sansuna one of the last Nephilim? Or is something even deeper buried beneath Malta? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you want more strange truths, forgotten knowledge and mysteries hiding in plain sight, hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload.